Welcome. I'm Diana Hart, and I'm going to show you how to make 2 meals today using similar ingredients. We're going to make a chicken pot pie, and we're going to make a chicken curry. It could be a vegetable curry if you don't want to add chicken to it, and it could be a vegan curry if you want. However, this is about making simple meals. Maybe on a Sunday, you're going to cook for a couple of meals for the rest of the week for you and your family. So we're trying to make it efficient and fun and easy. So I'm going to start by chopping an onion. We'll use half of this onion for the curry, and we'll use the other half for the chicken pot pie ingredients. I have some of my other ingredients ready, but I'm going to just show you this onion because every chef has their own way of cutting an onion, so I'm going to show you mine. I learned it probably 30 years ago at the New York Restaurant School, which is now called ICE, the Institute of Culinary Education. And my teacher said this is the way to cut an onion, so that's how I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm cutting off the ends. I always keep a little dish. I have my mushroom container here that's compostable, and I'm going to put everything that I'm not going to use today in that, and I'll put it in my compost pile later. So I've cut both ends off, so now I have 2 flat ends of the onion, and I'm going to cut it completely in half. Some people peel their onion at first, but I've learned that if you cut it in half, you can get your finger under the skin in the first layer, and then this peel comes off very simply. I will get just these little tidbits off the cutting board, and again, the same on the other side. I usually take the first layer of the onion off with the peel because it's kind of green. Sometimes it's a little tough. Occasionally you might find a little mold on it, then you want to kind of wash the onion off. There goes my oven, that means it's up to temperature. Okay, so now I'm holding the knife, thumb and finger to pinch the blade, and I'm going to cut the onion across the grain. So here's the grain, this is the way the onion grows, right? So I'm going to cut it across the grain as you would a bagel. The same way you cut a bagel. You always keep your fingers on top. You never want your fingers anywhere near where they might get cut. So I'm going to hold the onion on either side with my fingers up, and every slice that I make, my pointer finger is going to hold it down when I draw the blade up again. Now I'm going to go across the other way. I want a small dice for the sauce in both of these dishes, the curry and the chicken pot pie. And then in both of the dishes, I don't mind if I have a slightly larger piece of onion. So I'm going to cut this one a little bit wider. And I often do this with vegetables, as I'll show you with my peppers or my celery. Sometimes I like some of the pieces to be really small because they incorporate into the sauce and thicken it, and then you want to have like the integrity of the vegetable and have a good bite. So I have a bit of each. So I'm going to split that between 2 dishes. So I basically have a half cup of onions, small on one side, the small dice, and then the slightly larger dice. And they're going to cook a little differently too. The smaller pieces will cook down faster than the larger pieces. So that's the onion. Now I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut some garlic, chop some garlic. And again, I use whole fresh garlic. It's lovely. You can buy pureed garlic or pre-peeled garlic, like this. I'm cutting off just the little stem ends because they kind of hold the rest of the piece. I'm going to flatten it now, and I'm just putting my knife on top. I'm going to use my fist and flatten that. Now it's going to be a lot easier to chop and chop evenly. So I've got all 4 pieces now, and this is just going to go into my curry. I don't want garlic in my chicken pot pie. I want a milder flavor in that. The way we do usually anything small like this, like herbs, is you put your fingers on the tip of the knife and you pivot it. You're using the knife to go across everything. It's nice on the herbs like parsley or doing anything like that. Same with the garlic. You just keep pushing the pile back. You can wipe it off the blade carefully. And now I have kind of a medium fine chop, and that's perfect for my curry. And I'm going to put that aside on my little dish because I want to add that towards the end of the onion sweat for my curry. So I'm going to get both pans started. So in the right pan, I'm going to do the vegetable curry, which is going to have coconut milk in it. And in my left pan, I'm going to start the base of the chicken pot pie. So I'm going to turn both burners on. And I'm turning them to a medium low. And while that's heating, because we always put our cooking oils in our pans or our butter after the pan is hot. So I'm going to show you, this is an Asian eggplant, Asian eggplant, which I love because it doesn't have seeds like the Italian eggplant. It's softer, it's meatier, it's lovely. So I'm going to do all of the pieces in my vegetable chicken curry are going to be about the same size so that they cook at an even rate. I'm just going to use half of that. Here I have the other vegetables for my curry. I have celery, carrots, about the same size. I have cauliflower florets, which don't take too long, and I have some broccoli florets. I have snow peas and red peppers, which I will add at the very end because you just want them to get warmed through. They're so tender already. So I'm going to turn around and I'm going to put butter. I have a nice Kerrygold Irish butter for my chicken pot pie. I'm going to add that to the pot on my right here. And it'll be about 3 tablespoons of butter. And that's starting to melt. And on the other side, I'm going to do about 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. So that's going into this pan because this is a chicken vegetable curry. So I'm going to use a coconut base, and I'm going to use rice flour, which will actually be gluten-free. So that will be a gluten-free dish. The chicken pot pie will not be gluten-free. I'm using puff pastry crust to make it easy and simple and fast for you. And we're going to use an actual white flour for that. So the onions are going to go in. You can hear the sizzle. There's the butter, the lovely gold Irish butter. Kerrygold is such a nice butter. It has a richer taste, I think, than our American butter. And then the onions are going to go into the coconut, which is heating up here. It's melting down. It's going to lend a little sweetness and a little interest to that curry. I'm going to turn that up a tiny bit. The pan is bigger, it's not as hot. And I want to let you know that I poached the chicken ahead of time. I'm using thighs today, which I think have a more flavorful, richer taste to them. It's the dark meat of the chicken. However, I know a lot of people prefer a chicken breast, so if that's your preference, use it. To poach chicken, generally I make sure that it's all sort of the same thickness. You don't want big fat breasts. If you're going to cook poached chicken, you want the pieces to be even so that it doesn't take, longer for that larger end of the chicken breast to cook than the thinner tip. Otherwise you're going to get really rubbery chicken. So I'm going to set my eggplant over here, which is going to go next into my curry. But while I'm waiting for my onions to sweat off, I'm going to chop up the chicken a little bit. These thighs are all the same size basically, so I poached them whole. And I'm gonna put probably 2/3 into my chicken pot pie, which is more chicken than my curry, which is gonna have an equal amount, if not more, of the vegetables. And as I said, if you want to make a totally vegetarian curry, it's lovely. This dish is lovely that way. It's got enough interest with the eggplant and the cauliflower and the broccoli. I add chickpeas if I'm doing a completely vegan or vegetarian version for some protein. What we want to remember when we're making both of these bases is to put the herbs in with the onions and the fat, the oil or the coconut oil or the butter. We want the herbs and the seasoning to go into that because that's going to, for instance with the curry, it's going to bring life to that curry powder. You never want to add curry to a dish or a sauce at the end. It will taste bitter and bitey. You want it to incorporate and emulsify with the fat in the sauce. So I've got all my chicken prepped now. Just going to throw it back into this quart container. And interestingly enough, I'm making a pie in a 6-cup square rectangle Pyrex. That's going to be our chicken pie container. So I'm basically using the volume of this. I know that I need about a quart of filling to go in here, and then I'll have enough space to put my top. So I'm going to give everything a little stir right now. The onions are, we say, sweating. That means they're sweating in this coconut oil. They look wonderful. And into this, I'm going to throw in the eggplant. So you can see this sweating. It's just like you on a hot summer day at the beach. They're not brown, they're not burnt, they're not caramelized. They're just cooking until they become kind of clear. Now the difference here is that lovely Kerrygold golden butter. So the eggplant I want to toss a few times. It's going to take a few minutes to cook that. It doesn't have to be cooked completely through before I add a few of the other vegetables, but I will need to add the flour to create a base before I add too many things, because I want the flour to adhere to the fat and to also put the curry powder in. I'm going to add to the onions now the mirepoix, or the golden trio, which is onions, celery, and carrots, and that's the base for our chicken pot pie. Most of these wonderful ingredients I've gotten at Trader Joe's, like their chicken bone broth, which is a nice rich flavor. I use the coconut oil, either the solid or the spray from Trader Joe's is great. Organic garbanzo beans will go into the curry. And the herbs and spices you can get there as well. You can kind of one-stop shop. I've even got some fresh basil that I'll garnish the curry with, which is lovely. And it's, inexpensive. You can pinch off the top leaves and it'll keep growing for a few weeks. So you've got fresh basil for other things that you're going to make during the week. I'm just going to give this eggplant a little stir again to get the fat on all sides and start cooking that down. You see that? So you can see sort of raw edges of the eggplant. So we want it to be a little bit more cooked, but I'm going to add that curry paste very soon. Not curry paste, I'm sorry, it's curry powder today. I have a dry powder. You can get it a paste form, which means it's had oil or water added to it. it absorbs more quickly if you're making a sauce, quantity sauce. This is fine though. So I'm going to add about a half teaspoon maybe. We're going to add a little pinch of thyme to both of our dishes. And you want these to get the heat of the pan. You always want the herbs to experience the heat of the pan and the oil. It brings out the best in them. I also never just throw a green herb or a dried herb in. I always rub it with my fingers because that's breaking it down and it's bringing out the flavor and the oil in that herb. So now a little bit in my chicken pot pie. Thyme is a great herb for that flavor. It's kind of like a Thanksgiving flavor, as you know, or a roast chicken flavor. You always want sage, thyme, and I have marjoram as well that I'm going to put in there. Marjoram adds a little sweetness, and this just gives your sauce depth. I'm going to toss that a little bit, and then I'm going to give my chicken pot pie base a good stir. That's looking nice. The onions are sweated through, the celery's getting a little tender, the carrots are getting a little tender, and we'll add stock after we add our flour. So I am going to add the garlic to the curry and let that hit the pan a little bit so it won't be as raw. And now I'm going to add the flours to both of these bases to create the sauce, basically. You want the flour to cook off a little. For the curry, I'm going to use a fine brown rice flour. So that's our gluten-free dish of the day. We're just going to toss it back and forth so it absorbs the oil. And in the chicken pot pie, I'm adding white flour. And to this, it's about 1.5 tablespoons to 2 cups of liquid. And as I said, it's going to be about a quart, so that's 4 cups. So I'm adding 3 tablespoons of flour. And this I do want to stir. Have to stir it a little bit more than the rice flour because it is glutinous. And I want it to be absorbed by all of that nice butter in this pan. Then you won't have lumps in your sauce. If you've ever made a gravy, that's one of the hardest things for people to make is a gravy because often the liquid isn't hot enough or it's too hot and you want, you can't add it at the end. You have to add it with the fat at the beginning before you put the liquid in. So that'll be another episode. You can look at my gravy episode or my sauce making episode. So I have the bone broth, and I'm going to add that right now to the chicken pot pie base. Some people add cream in their chicken pot pie. You can do that. It just, you know, it's very rich. It's lovely. I'm not going to do that on this one, in this pie. And some people want to add potatoes. That's a great addition. Sweet potato can be a great addition. I mean, really, you can put anything you want in your chicken pot pie. It's your chicken pot pie, after all. So now I'm going to turn that down and let that cook, simmer somewhere between 4 and 3 on my burner. Now it's time to add the coconut milk. And the ginger. I didn't add any ginger yet. So I'm going to add a little already pureed ginger to this dish. It's going to give it that nice little zing. That's about a teaspoon. And I'll just toss that around. And now the coconut milk is going to go in. And then I'm going to pop in the rest of my veggies. And they'll just steep coconut milk is going to create the sauce in this curry. So it's picking up all of the nice fat and flour from the bottom. And remember, this one is the rice flour, so it's gluten-free. And I'm going to drop all my little veggies in there so that they can, these are cut much smaller than you saw I did for the chicken pot pie base. They're a little bit smaller, so they'll cook faster. And I'm going to hold off on the other veggies, which, as I said, will cook, you know, a little bit quicker, so we don't want to add them and overdo them. So give this a toss, a stir, and the chicken base looks good. I'm going to just give that a stir so that my flour gets moved around in the pan. And then we're going to get our pie base ready. We've got our chicken chopped. So as I said, we're going to put it in this Pyrex, which is oven safe. And I have puff pastry in my fridge. And this is just store-bought puff pastry. You can make your own. You could make your own short crust. You could make a gluten-free crust, whatever you want to do. This, honestly, the way it comes out of the package, it's frozen, it's folded over. I've just thawed it in the refrigerator and then opened it up, and then I just held it in there until I needed it. We're not going to use all of it. You can just lay your pan on top of it, as you might do if you're familiar with making a pie crust. And I just want this perfect little top that's maybe slightly larger than the pan itself, so I'm just going to cut around it. It's really easy. There it is. Some people like a crust on the bottom and the top. I'm going a little lighter. But these puff pastry packages that you can get at any store, grocery store, they do come 2 sheets, so you could cut one bottom and then have one top. So this will fit perfectly, as you can see. And I'm not rolling this out. If I were doing something like making cheese straws out of this or something that was very layered, I might roll it out and thin it. But I like a nice thick top to my chicken pot pie. And maybe we'll just use this to decorate it. So you could cut stripes or use your cookie cutter and make little hearts, which is what I usually do, and put that on top. So that's ready. Let's look and see where we are with our fillings. I'm going to turn this up a tiny bit to somewhere about, I would call it medium heat, because we want the chicken stock and now the flour base to create a sauce, and it has to come up to almost a boil in order for it to start thickening. We don't want it to boil consistently, but we want it to get up to that heat level, and then we'll turn it low and let it simmer. It's almost there. See if you can take a look at this. So it's getting velvety. I would call it velvety when the butter is combining with the chicken stock and getting hot enough. It becomes velvety. And our curry looks so colorful and pretty now. So now it has the eggplant, the carrots, and the celery are cooking down. This sauce is nice and thick, and I'm going to add the cauliflower now to it, because that needs to cook a little bit longer than the snow peas and the peppers, which really just have to be heated through. And my broccoli is actually blanched, so that doesn't need very long either. At the end of the curry, I'm probably going to just add this little bit of spinach to give it a little green. This is a great way to add vitamins and minerals to any dish that you're cooking. I love throwing in a handful of spinach to a soup dish. You could put it in the chicken pot pie if you want, but it's really nice in something that you're just finishing, whether it's a pasta dish or a sauce for your chicken. So we can add the chicken now into the pot pie mix, and I'm going to add the broccoli as well. I had green beans and broccoli in there that were par blanched, and I'm going to do about 2/3 of the chicken, as I said, because I'm leaving some of that for the curry. So I'm going to add that in here. Once again, this is already cooked chicken, so it's not raw. It does not have to be cooked through. It's already cooked, so I'm just bringing it up to heat. Just stir that. And this is when I would taste it, and I would add salt and pepper to both. I'm going to turn this one down because it's bubbling now. It's bubbling and beautiful. I'm actually going to turn it off because now the sauce is thick enough. You can see the green beans and the broccoli are bright green, so even when we bake it off, they won't be dull and mushy. You want them to be vibrant and have a little texture to them still. That makes it much more delicious. So I'm actually going to go ahead and scoop it right into my dish here. Because all we have to do now is pop that lid on, that puff pastry lid, and put it in the oven. I'm going to bake it at 375, and it will probably take about 20 minutes for that puff pastry top to just get golden brown, because as you can see, this is cooked, heated through, and it's just going to finish cooking those al dente vegetables a little bit and get a nice gold on top of that crust. So there's my 1 quart of filling. Just about perfect, isn't it? And this was a 1.5 quart saucepan. So if you're thinking in terms of measurement, it's an easy way to go. So here's the top, and I would probably do a little egg wash on top of it to make it shiny and pretty. And then I'll just pop that in the oven. And the curry is now ready to add the snow peas, the broccoli, and the snow peas and the red peppers. So look at how colorful and beautiful that is. And we will add our chopped chicken. And once again, remember, if you have a vegan or vegetarian friends and family members, if you like to eat meatless a couple days a week, this is great just as it is. This is a wonderful dish. It has lots of flavor, the creaminess of the coconut, the yummy curry and ginger flavors. And I'm just going to add a little fresh ground pepper and a little of my pink Himalayan sea salt. I'm going to add the chickpeas, which give it extra protein. And again, they just need to be heated through. And for fun and a little extra taste, some chopped scallions. A pinch of parsley, and we have a really colorful and beautiful dish. Really tasty. All you need is, some brown rice or some quinoa. You could put this over a rice ramen noodle that you could cook in about 3 minutes, and you're good. So bon appetit, folks. We'll see you with the chicken pot pie in a few minutes. All right, so I've just mixed 1 egg with a tablespoon of cold water and mixed it up with just my fork. So the pie is now ready to be egg washed. I'm going to use a pastry brush and just give it a few brushes. That'll give it a nice shine. And into the oven it goes. Top shelf, 20 minutes until it's heated through and that puff pastry is golden brown. All right, we're back and ready to plate our chicken pot pie and our delicious vegetable curry, chicken vegetable curry. So here's that, and I'm gonna put it as a one dish meal. This is the perfect one dish meal. I've got this beautiful bowl my niece Jenna made me. Willow made me. We're gonna put this in here. Look at all those gorgeous, colorful vegetables. This is a lovely one dish meal on its own. And as I said, you could do this without the chicken and make it vegan. It had rice flour, it's gluten-free. It's a perfect lunch or dinner. That's all you need. Look at that, that's great. All right, and now our chicken pie, which has been in the oven for 20-25 minutes to get this lovely golden brown. And I would normally let this sit a little bit before I serve it. It's really bubbling. I did put it on a small baking sheet because this is the kind of thing that does start to bubble over in your oven, and instead of having a big mess on the bottom of your oven, take the precaution and put it on a baking sheet. So we can stir up a little so you can see what it looks like. But to me this is probably 4 portions. Or 2 very generous portions. So I would put this in a bowl to get all that delicious sauce, and you can see the vegetables are still, they've got a nice integrity. There's still some green in the green beans. And the chicken is delicious and perfectly cooked, and what a lovely dinner. All right, bon appetit, folks.